Hello and welcome to Black Women North of 50. I'm Wynn Helms, change seeker and podcast host. My guest today is Dr. Kris Marsh, who is a professor at the University of Maryland, College Park. She's a sociologist and she is a researcher of Black American demography. She's written a book called Love Jones Cohort that gives data, facts about being Black, being single, and middle America in a certain cohort, which would be a little bit younger than us, but it's probably our children. I'm going to be asking her about those of us who are north of 50 and what this research means for us and the kinds of things we can tell our kids about what's happening for them. Stay with me. Welcome back to Black Women North of 50. I'm Wynn Helms, change seeker and your host. Today, as I said, I've got Dr. Kris Marsh with me today. I'm very happy to have her here. She is a tenured professor at the University of Maryland, College Park, and she is a researcher of Black middle class in the United States, in America, basically on single people, not
Yes.
on married people. So thank you so much for being here.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
My goodness, I used to be in this demographic. I'm out of it now, but I'm still curious because a lot of people, well, there are people north of 50 that have kids that are in this demographic.
Yes.
And what do we tell them? I'm glad that your book has statistics, so they're not crazy. This is why this is happening. You talk about structural conversation instead of individual conversation.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. It's funny because one of the things I say about the book is I'm really trying to destigmatize singlehood. There's so many people that are in relationships that are abusive, toxic, unfulfilling, and unrewarding simply because they don't want to hold the title of single. Part of the reason is because they think that they've done something wrong, right? They weren't light enough. They weren't dark enough. They weren't tall enough. They weren't short enough. They didn't fast enough. They didn't pray enough. And I'm arguing that we need to not think about singlehood from an individual perspective, but we need to more so think about structural forces. And what I say all the time is that we have to understand how structural forces constrain our personal choices.
Right.
If I were to say that differently so people can understand that, I would say we have to understand how racism constrains our personal choices. If I would then kind of give an example, like what I mean by that, if I, Kris Marsh, want to marry another Black heterosexual man who has his PhD, owns his own home, has estate planning, and makes $250,000, he's simply not there. So whether or not I'm dating by choice or by force, we have to understand that there's structural forces that have constrained my dating pool, regardless if I decide to engage in dating or not. There are structural forces that are impeding me from having partners. And we don't have enough conversation at the structural level. We really leave it at the individual level. And again, it's really important for me to push away from that because if not, people are going to be thinking like, woe is me, I didn't do something right.
Yep. I get a lot of that with my clients. And I don't know what to tell them. So I'm so glad I read your book. It's like, it's not you. I mean, it's one thing to say it's not you, but to have facts to back it up is really wonderful. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Goodness.
You send them all to the book.
Right, exactly. I'll put it in the show notes. I was looking at one of your interviews where you were saying that you wanted to write a journal so that you could look back 5 years and see what's what. Did you do that or?
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I always go back and look and I was like, oh my gosh. And one of the things that kind of just annoys me is my writing. My writing is terrible. I literally can't read my writing, but that's okay. But it is important for us to kind of look back and look at where we've come and where we're going. So it really is important that we kind of journal these experiences.
Absolutely. What are you finding that, well, what I really want to ask you is starting out with this research, what got you to that place of, this is interesting. I'd like to research this.
So it's funny that you asked that question because I'm in Los Angeles as we speak. I'm a professor at the University of Maryland, but I'm home for winter break as we're doing this recording. And I went to University of Southern California, which is right down the street from my house where I did my PhD. And as I was being trained as a demographer, my sisters and we bought a house in Leimert Park, which is right down the street from USC. And there were two other people that were single and living alone who bought houses on our street. And as I was looking in the demographic literature, I was like, okay, I know that marriage rates have changed for all racial and ethnic groups, but it's way more pronounced for Black Americans. I didn't see scholars really picking up this conversation about people that weren't married and didn't have any children.
Yeah.
So it's partly an individual experience of me moving into a house with my sister and on the street with other people that were single and living alone. And it was partly being trained as a demographer. And I was like, there's a gap in the literature. There's a huge void in the literature. So I was trying to fill in the void
Hmm.
and talk more about those that are single and living alone.
What about little Kris? What kind of messages were modeled for you when you were a little girl?
I think most of us, but not just my parents, but I think most of us like the idea of like having this white wedding, having the knight with shining armor sweep you off your feet, have this wonderful white wedding, and not have to worry about any issues or any bad things I have to deal with in life because you have this savior that's going to take care of you. I'm like, yeah, so that did not happen. That did not work. But I think a lot of people had that idea of like they're going to get married, life is going to be great. And I often wonder, why do we think marriage is a panacea? It's like, if I could just get married, all my social ills will go away. That's not how that works.
Hmm.
It's also baffling when people say, like, if I could just get married, I won't be broke anymore. So two broke people that get married are just two broke people that are married. It does not catapult you into middle class status.
It's true.
So unfortunately, we see these images from a very young age. Like you're supposed to get married, you're supposed to be a wife, you're supposed to do this. And it doesn't always translate for some people. And for some people, it's not supposed to translate. For some people, it does. But unfortunately, that's only one message that
Yes.
we're getting.
Yes.
And so my book offers another message. I was a little afraid that my students wouldn't really read the book or really wouldn't gravitate to the book, but they did and they loved it. And one of the things they consistently say to me is like, thank you, Dr. Marsh, for giving us another narrative.
Yes. Why did you think they would not?
The people in the book that I interviewed, they were 25 to 65. I can't remember the age now. I'm on summer break, so my mind's not working like
I believe it's 65 to 45. I've got 65, 45.
45. Thank you. In the
20,
quantitative work that I did, it was
Yeah.
25 to 65. In the
Okay.
book, I think I closed the barriers a bit, and I think it was 45 to 60. So I was afraid that my younger students, who are like, some of them are as young as 18, 19, they're like, we're not even thinking about this kind of stuff yet. But a lot of my students have read the book regardless of age, and they really do appreciate it. And I
Of
think
course they do. Yeah. Most of your research was done in the DMV, around the DC area.
yeah.
How are you seeing that translate in Los Angeles?
I'm not. And, one of the things I say is like, I like to get out of the way. I wrote this book. I left so many unanswered questions for graduate students and people behind me to come up and carry the conversation forward. So all my work is on the DMV, or DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. But I don't know how this data would hold, how my findings would hold up in the Deep South. I don't know how my findings would hold up on the West Coast. So those are unanswered questions, which I hope graduate students or faculty coming behind me pick up the mantle and carry the conversation forward.
Mm-hmm. I have conversations with Black women in the South, very traditional Baptist Christian homes, where that being single is not an option.
Right.
You get married, you have kids, the whole thing.
Right.
And I'm like you. I'm wondering, that must be changing, even in the South, a little bit.
I think it is. It is changing across the country, across the globe. Actually, singlehood's on the rise everywhere, and I think with time we're getting better, and it's not as stigma. The stigma it's decreasing. It's loosening up some, but we still have a way to go.
I'm thinking, either it's loosening up or I just don't care anymore because I'm north of 50.
Look at that too. Right? I even think one of my dear friends said, I'm going to give profanity for illustration. I'm going to use profanity for illustration purposes. One of the things my dear friend said, she said, once you turn 50, you give zero fucks. I am 50. And so when my students start showing out in class, I'm like, how old am I? So they know I'm like, I don't care. I'm not doing this with you. I'm not doing this with you. When you get 50, there's a certain level of liberation that just comes with being 50.
That's true. And with the experience behind it, it's a great combination, actually.
Yeah.
You talk about women and friend groups and how Black women have a lot of friend groups. I run into women that don't have friend groups, Black women, more than 50. And because of the online community, think they have friends. I guess what I'm trying to ask is internet friendships, the same kind of support?
That is such an amazing question. Let me tell you why that's so important to me right now. I'm working on this project where I'm talking about like, how do you make friends later in life? Because that legitimately is a question. I have done book talks around the country, around the world. And one of the questions that often comes up is like, how do you make friends later in life? And so I've been going to these concerts and I've been trying to make friends at these concerts because people are thinking about concerts as this kind of people, some of the literature is suggesting that concerts are a form of church or this collective effervescence. Think about it for a second, though,
Oh,
right?
no, I hear you.
And so, can you make a friend at a concert that's 2 hours and 30 minutes long? And I am arguing that, and I always tell my students this, and I stand by this. I don't care where you sit in the conversation. I just care that you sit in the conversation. You do not have to agree with me, but let's just have the conversation.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think is really important, especially post COVID, where we're saying that there's this high, there's a loneliness epidemic. Maybe if we were to think about friends differently, we may not be as lonely. So I'm going to these concerts, I'm trying to make friends. So the question is, can you truly make a friend with someone with 2 hours and 50 minutes or 2 hours and 30 minutes? And I argue that the word friend is a little bit too inclusive. And
How do you mean?
we need to broaden the term a bit. And if we were making it a little exclusive, like, what you know what I mean? If we were to broaden the term,
Uh-huh.
more people could see that they have friends and they may not be as lonely as they think they are. But if we have a very narrow, focused definition of a friend, which says you have to have spent at least 30 years together, you have to have gone through something traumatic together, then like we have a very narrow focus of friendships and friends. So I'm arguing we should broaden it. So to your actual point, yes, I do believe that people on the internet can be a version of a friend.
Mm.
But I also think there's something to be said about actually going out and talking to people and having real life social interactions with people. So the book that I'm writing is about going to concerts. So for people that don't know how to start, one way to possibly think about starting is going to concerts, go to live concerts and just talk to people.
Mhm.
And it's funny because I'm kind of drawing from two theories. And one theory suggests that you'd be really surprised how positive of an interaction you have when you talk to a stranger. People are
Yes.
afraid to talk to strangers.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, I'm just going to go to these concerts as a solo concert go and talk to strangers. And I've had wonderful conversations. The other kind of theory suggests like the stronger the tie you have with someone versus the weaker the tie you have with someone, that'll determine like how you show up.
Mhm.
And so the theory kind of suggests that the weaker the tie is, the more transparent and honest you'll be with the other person because they're not going to judge you. Versus
Right.
someone that you've known for 30 years, you have a stronger tie with, they're gonna judge you, so you're not gonna be as honest.
Or you're
So
not
for
gonna care that they're judging you.
right, I don't care. It's like they call it the bartender effect. So like just to say for illustration purposes or for poetic license only. So if I'm sleeping with a married man, I just robbed a bank, and I just contracted HIV/AIDS and whatever it may be, I can tell somebody that I've only known for 30 minutes that versus someone that I've known for 3 years. Like, how you sleep with a married man? How you rob a whole bank? Can I get some of that money? And what you're doing having unprotected sex? So
Right.
it's just a whole big thing that they're going to judge you. And so I am astonished for some of the things that people have told me on this concert tour
Mm.
that is because we have weak ties, but the weaker ties makes you be more vulnerable and actually open up to who you truly are. And so there's many different ways you can make friends. And so I'm just offering concerts as one way to possibly start building friendships with people.
Yeah, I just real quick, I went to a conference not too long ago, and I don't usually go up and talk to people, but this woman and I would just start talking, and come to know we have friends, mutual friends. She lives in DC, I live in LA. You gotta be careful who you're talking to about your stuff, because
Right. You got, oh, right.
oh, oh, okay,
Like, right. Oh, you won't say anything. Be like,
right.
yeah.
But it was
What did
a
they say? 6 degrees of separation. They said it's really not six.
well. My dad said something else, but I can't say it on camera.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
tell you later. Um, anyway, yeah. The idea of having a friend group as an older woman north of 50, older sounds like, no,
Right.
1 foot in, but, it's just wonderful. I really feel for the women who don't have that.
Right.
And if you're not a part of a church or, uh, planting gardens kind of thing,
Hmm.
where do you go? How do you make friends? And you're saying, get out there, um, make yourself present in real time with
Yeah.
with people who are, you know, Right next to you, not through a screen somewhere kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
I also started golfing recently, and I've made a lot of good friends, golfing too. I never ever thought that I would like golf. I was like, "That's just boring." And I would used to put golf on TV to make me fall asleep. And now I d 'cause yeah. Now I'm like literally watching golf on TV. I'm like, "What is happening right now?"
Wow, that's a shift. All of a sudden you woke up, huh?
But I woke up. I was like, "Wait a minute."
I can't sleep, and this is kinda interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
good. At one point in one of your interviews, you talk about how being a Black woman single is it's not new. We've been single and making it work for generations.
Right.
And is that something that was ever talked about in your family?
No, it's funny. It wasn't talked about, but it was also very clear. My mother had 4 sisters, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sisters, and only 2 of them were married. The other 2 were just never married.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Yeah. And on my father's side of the family, he had 2 sisters, and 1 was married and 1 never married. So, like, having people in my family or extended family that were singles, like, that's what we knew. We never really talked about it. That's just what we knew. But
Yeah.
what I do think is kind of important right now is that a lot of the singlehood scholarship is kind of talking about how, like, oh my gosh, the rise of singlehood and all this kind of great stuff. And one of the things I say in my book, and I say this everywhere I go, and I was like, what we're not getting ready to do is act like white women have just come up with this idea of singlehood. What Black women have been doing this and doing this for years, and Black women deserve their flowers because they have shown the world how to do singlehood and how to do it well.
Singlehood, and we're talking about single women, no kids,
Yes.
not divorced,
Right.
not widowed,
Right.
never having had an interpersonal relationship, let me put it like that. Not in
Yeah.
terms of okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, uh,
Yeah. And so I think it's really important that Black women don't get lost in this entire conversation because they really have been the pioneers and the trailblazers for this. So that's really important for me to make sure I keep reiterating in every space that I go into.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I keep going back to your the facts about how there's data that shows why it is that there's so many single Black women in the
Right.
middle class.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So again, to the point that I was kind of making at the beginning of the podcast, it's not because these Black women who aren't married, don't have any children, didn't pray enough, didn't fast enough, weren't light skinned enough, weren't dark skinned enough, their butt wasn't big enough, their hair wasn't long enough, their hair wasn't curly enough. It's not always an individual conversation.
Right.
And if we're not careful, we will leave it at the individual level. But I really want to talk about structure. Now, here's what's really important because I get hate mail all the time. People say I'm bad for Black America because I'm talking about single parents and da da da. I was like, have you heard me mention single parents yet? I'm not doing that. And I think Black love is a beautiful thing, but I'm not going to promote marriage just for the sake of promoting marriage. But with that being said, one of the things we know in the social science literature is that people typically marry people that look like them. And when I say look like them, I'm saying like, it's called educational homogamy, or it's called homogamy. You marry somebody, if I have a PhD, I typically going to marry somebody with a PhD. If I'm making $250,000, I'm kind of marry someone who's making the same amount of money. If I'm professional, I'm typically going to marry someone who's kind of professional. That's what the data suggests. You marry people that look like you because you're in close proximity to them. So I go to PhD conferences and stuff all the time, so I meet other PhDs. Now, so if people want to marry somebody that looks like them, the men are just not there for the Black women. Now, do Black women want to marry down or marry up? I don't care what Black women do. Stop policing Black women and let Black women do what they want to do. There's all these conversations out here. Should Black woman marry someone who doesn't have the same educational level or income level? I don't care. Stop policing Black women. But here's what we do know. Typically, we marry someone that looks like us. And so Black women have to make these kind of different kind of decisions. And I want to say this part is important. This is not the same conversation that white women are having. So that tells you that structural forces have constrained our personal choices. White women are not having the same conversation.
Well, and I don't know the statistics on the number of Black or brown men that are in prison or in jail,
Right.
but it's large.
Right.
And I would think
Right.
for this particular cohort, it'd be really large.
Right, so that plays into the conversation as well, right?
About
So it's like,
racism.
okay,
Mhm.
right. And
Yeah.
how some are just, like, not with us. They've passed on. So it's like, we have to understand that structural forces have constrained our personal choices. This is not an individual conversation, which is interesting, right? Because in the book, one of the things that I say at the end of the book, I say, "After reading this book, I hope you're just as likely to ask somebody, 'Why are you married?' as you are to ask somebody, 'Why are you single?'" If we
Yes.
keep asking all these single people, "Why are they single?" It one privileges marriage, and you're forcing people, individual people, to offer you structural conversations, and that shouldn't be up to them to have to do that. Well,
Well, right.
you
And
should be
um,
aware of how structure impedes their choices. Why
that's
should
the
they have to educate you? Not doing that.
yeah, exactly. And so many conversations about, well, in psychotherapy, why are you married? Why you with him again?
Like, right, like what?
Because what you just said was like,
Right,
I'm just
right,
clear.
right.
Yeah, and the conversation about it, I just wanna put that out there, and you have before as well. This is not slamming black men. It's not.
Not at all. Not at
It's
all.
it's that's not the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's people tell me, like, on the manosphere or in some cell or something, people are, like, just dragging me, and I was like, "Okay, I'm not really interested." People that don't take the time to really understand my argument, I'm just not going to engage with them.
oh, I see.
Yeah, because I get
Then
hate all the time, "You're bad for Black Americans." I think just because I have single in the title, they assume I'm saying, "We don't need black men and da 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 da," and that's not what I'm saying at all.
mhm. Do you have brothers?
No, I have 2 older sisters.
Okay. Are you the baby?
I am.
What's
Yes.
the age difference?
My one sister is 14 months older than me, and then I have another sister who's 6 and 7 years older than us.
Okay, so you and your middle sister kinda grew up together
Yes, and
in
my
that
parents were like, it's just they were lazy, air quotes, because they were like, "We're gonna dress you alike as dress you similar or the same as long as they could." We
we did
we
this
were in high
once, we're not
school,
doing it 3 times.
like, they were in high school before we got to wear our own clothes, they weren't dressing us alike. I'm like, "Wow, you really going to the store buying 2 outfits?"
Oh my goodness, parents. I mean, I gotta say, I gotta give so much respect to mothers.
Right,
One of the reasons why I'm not one is just
right.
that's a lot of work,
A lot
and
of work.
to do it well. And I mean, I can think of maybe 5 women in my life that needed to be a mother.
Right,
They just have it, as
right,
opposed to someone who's like, okay, I've got to have a baby by.
right.
And I was one of those people around mid-30s. I have a baby here soon. First, I got to find a man. Huh.
Right.
Oh, I don't really want to have a baby. Well, that's freed me up
Good.
for a whole lot of things. It's great.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
What kind of strengths do you think our Black middle class women bring to the table after 50 because of singleness?
Right. So, that's great that you asked that question. One of the things that I think is really important is kind of getting back to this idea of friendship. And here's what the data kind of suggests, and here's what some of my respondents said. Women who have never been married, Black women in particular, who have never been married, don't have any children. As they age, the data suggests that they're actually happier than other people.
Mhm.
Part of the reason why they're happier is because they didn't put all of their eggs in the marriage basket. And so and they continue to grow their network. So they have certain friends that they'll go to church with, certain friends that they'll go golfing with, certain friends that they'll go traveling with, certain friends that they'll use profanity with. I got certain friends for different things. And so they have a full life. They're living a full life. Sometimes what happens that married people put all their eggs in the marriage basket. And as they age, they find themselves returning back to singlehood because of widowed, separation, or divorce, and they didn't foster these relationships in their network, and their network just doesn't really grow. I remember I was on a plane, I was going to one of my concerts, and I was on a plane, and I was talking to this guy that was sitting next to me, this pastor, and he said, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, married people, as soon as you get married, your network is the network that you have. You don't broaden your network. He's like, I can't really go home and tell my wife, I met this amazing young woman on a flight. She was like, Oh, did you?
Right.
And he's like,
Yeah.
his wife's not a jealous person, but you just can't. So he's like, I appreciate single people because they can still build their network, continue to build their network as they age. And so that's one of the strengths that we have the ability to build our network as broad and as wide as we want to. And we don't have any insecure people or any people that have any question about the people that we're meeting along the way.
Right. To have a committee of friends. I go to her when I'm angry. I go to her when I need spiritual uplifting. I go to her when I just need somebody to cry on the shoulder. It's a wonderful thing to have that. And you, like you said, if you're married, you may not keep it if you have that
Right.
when you're single.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of a strange question.
Okay.
What don't you get asked about being single and Black in Middle America?
That's such a weird that's a great question. I get asked everything. So, I don't know there's anything that I don't get asked. In fact, one of the things that I say in my book is that, why do you think it's okay to talk about the sex lives of single people, but we honor and respect the sex lives of married folks? If you asking me when's the last time I got some, I wanna ask you, when's the last time you got some? When's the last time you gave your husband some? Why is it okay for you to ask me, but it's taboo to ask a married couple? So I get asked all kinds of questions. Of course, I must be gay. I get asked everything. So there's not much that they don't ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of one thing they don't ask me. I can't.
I have to say, from listening to you talk, you're very clear about your cohort. And from where I'm sitting as a psychotherapist, I try to be very democratic about everybody.
Mhm.
Um, you're saying this, you're not talking about binary, you're not talking about any genders except male, female, Black, middle class, America. That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's who you study. That's it.
Yeah,
Uh,
we
mm,
actually did try to recruit people that were part of the LGBTQIA plus community, but we
uh-huh.
actually only had one man who was in the community. We tried
Oh,
to. So I'm like, there's so many unanswered questions. Again, that'd be a really great question. People that are non-binary, how they fit into this conversation. It's like, I can't answer all this. I just answered one part. I just started to carve out one part. There's so many other questions that could be explored
my
and
goodness.
should be.
That's a whole nother podcast. We're
Yes.
talking about it. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. What do you tell your students 18 to 20 about what it's like to be 25 to 35 and what that might look like for them?
When I first started as an academic, I used to tell students what to do. And as I aged, I was like, I really and it kind of comes off like me. This is what I did, so you should do it too. And as I sat and I listened to students and I talked to students, I realized it's like I don't tell students what to do anymore. I let students do whatever they want to do. I'm like, okay, so you want to do this? Let's talk through what some of the consequences might be
Mhm.
if you do this. I don't tell them. I don't give them advice. I let them do what they want to do. So with that being said, I don't tell students a lot about what's going to happen when they're 25, 35, or 45, but I just live my life. And one of the things that students say all the time, like, Dr. Marsh, you are out here living your best life. And they say it all the time. And they say, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. They say it all the time because it's not easy being a Black woman in America. It's not easy living in America right now, but I've chosen Black joy. I am going to lean into Black joy in all of this darkness that we are in. And because I lean into this Black joy, people don't really know how to interpret it. Some people, they just don't. They just absolutely just don't. They don't. They don't take me seriously. That I am often looked at as suspicious or they're going to try to exploit the Black joy. But my students lean into the Black joy and like, Dr. Marsh, we just love your energy. We love your excitement. You're living your very best life and we're hoping we can live the same life as you one day.
Yeah,
And so,
they're not jaded yet,
yeah. Hey, get it, yeah.
which is why it's so important to have you and your energy in their lives so that maybe they won't get jaded at
Yeah.
some point. But,
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, the young kids, they say different things. So they're like, they'll just say like goals. That means like, okay, my goal is to make sure I'm happy like Dr. Marsh when I'm 35, 45, 55. Yeah.
Yeah, without looking at the bigger picture. And do you talk to your students about the kind of messages that they get about what they're supposed to be doing in terms of marriage and
No, I don't talk to students. I talk to parents. And I'm like, listen, Why are you out here telling telling your children to get married? Why are you not telling your children to find their best friends, the friends that they will have the rest of their adult lives in college?
Hmm.
Because your friends are going to show up for you. Your boo thing may or may not make it through college. The 4 or 5 years that you might be there, depending if you're on the 4-year plan or the 5-year plan. But they may not be there. But it's like, you'll go to college, get yourself an MRS degree. No, find yourself friends that you will have in your adulthood and will show up for you.
Yeah. And I think, mm, I'm just going to go broad here for a second in terms of being I'm north of 50 by a little bit. And recognizing that my goodness, I feel very fortunate to have such good friends.
Yeah,
And dating, it's not important anymore.
it's just
Um, it's just not. And I feel fortunate once again because it's not important because I have a group of people. I have a cohort
right.
at,
Oh,
at
sure,
this
right?
age. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was at a book talk and like a couple of parents like broke out into tears. I was like, okay, I didn't want to make you cry, but
Yes, you did.
I was like, I didn't want to make cry fine. But they were like, yeah, like we all we said was go to college and find a mate, find a partner.
Mm,
And they
yeah.
kind of felt guilty about that.
COVID was a very isolating time. And being a Black woman, I recognized, goodness, where are we? Where are my Black sisters, And because staying inside, I don't live in a neighborhood that is predominantly Black. I have Black clients, but they're clients. They're not friends. They're not family
Right.
members. Where do I go to find these people? I know I can't be the only one. Is my point? I can't be, which is why I started this podcast
Really?
to find a community of Black women. Yeah,
Oh, that's
absolutely.
great.
Yeah. So tell your friends. Um,
Mm-mm.
I think it's important, and I think we have lost sight of how important that is.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'll be out walking, and I'll see a Black woman. I'm like, "Oh, you're the other Black woman in the valley. Hi, how you doing? Join the club."
That's right. Yeah. COVID
Yeah.
did I c COVID was very isolating for a lot of us.
Mhm.
Luckily, I was able to play, like, golf, and golf is an outdoor sport, so I get to play golf and stuff, but, yeah, I was like
Mhm.
it was at first, it was fun, right? Like, "Oh, yeah, we don't have to go to work." After about, like, 2 weeks, you're like, "Wait, are we still here?" I was like, "Now it's,
Exactly.
like, 2 years, are we still here?"
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You talk about economic freedom, education, income, occupation, and wealth um, being important and kind of not talked about in our community. What are you finding people talking about now in that age group?
So I do think that one of the things we should be talking about, and we're not maybe talking about enough, is estate planning. I was like, I don't care how little you have. I don't care how much you have. You need to have yourself a will and a living trust or some kind of document that states exactly where you want your stuff to go if something happens to you. I think what happens a lot of times is people think that they don't have enough. So since they don't have enough, they're going to wait till they accumulate all these assets and then they're going to put some formal documentation together. Again, I don't care how little you have. I don't care how much you have, especially if you're single, especially if you're Black. I'm like, you think about like some of these big stars, Aretha Franklin, Prince, John Singleton. None of them had their affairs in order.
Oh, is that right? Oh, I didn't know that.
Prince, I don't think Prince did. Well, we didn't know Prince was going to die. Aretha
Mm.
Franklin did not, and neither did John Singleton.
Oh, man. I did not know
Yeah,
that. And
I can't.
I'm not surprised. But,
Right,
mhm.
right,
And because we've got a demographic that is living longer, um, people north of 50 are dealing with parents who are becoming less capable to function. I dancing around um, dementia
right,
and those kinds of illnesses, and
right,
not having your affairs in order.
right.
You've got to talk to people who are younger than you.
Right. It's like, so I think we need to talk about estate planning. I also think we need to talk about aging parents, which I think this group should be talking about. And lastly, for women in particular, I think I hear it more and I'm so thankful. We need to continue to have conversations about menopause, period, full stop. It's not just hot flashes.
And that's another podcast. It's coming.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, the aging parents, um, and the responsibility. What does
Mhm.
that look like in your family?
Yeah.
If not, and I gotta say, women, Black women, in my experience, that's what I'll say, have been the ones to take care of their parents.
Yeah, I talk about that in the book, especially if you're single too. It's like, okay, so you don't have a partner, you don't have children, so the brunt of the work or the lion's share of the work
It's on you.
is on the single person.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then
We
and
we
then
need to have these conversations.
and what is that horrible word? Um,
What's funny, they have all it is interesting that they have all these words like you're the cat lady, you're the old maid, like,
Look, I am Black, single, 2 cats, and proud of it,
right?
alright? So
Right?
don't trip.
Like, I'm not like, I was like, I'm not living my best life. You can call me whatever you wanna call me because I ain't worried about it.
I'm not. And it's so nice not to feel pressure, the pressure of, "I got married, I got children." It just living your life, like you said.
Yeah.
What would you tell 19-year-old Kris if she had all your information?
I probably would tell 19-year-old Kris, "Don't worry about what other people think about you. Don't. Don't. Just don't."
Mm.
I think we spend a lot of time trying to do, impression management, and I'm like, "No, just live your life. Stand confidently in who you are." I know that I'm a lot of energy. I know that I'm like, energetic, I'm hyper, I'm all of that, and I'm like, I just lean into that. I absolutely lean into it now.
Was there a time when it was kind of, like, frowned upon for you to be effusive?
Well, I think even now, it's so funny because one of my dearest girlfriends always says, like, okay, whenever we're out, she's like, well, she's had coffee and I haven't had coffee, but I literally haven't had coffee. And so I'm just like, okay, people still to this day don't know how to embrace my energy. And I'm like, but I'm not going to turn down my energy for anybody. It's
Yeah, right.
just, this is just how I was wired, how I was made.
Yeah, either you're up for that or not. We don't have to have a relationship at all. We can
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
And I'm okay with that. I
Well,
think
right.
people that don't have the same energy, they just can't match the energy. So that their first thing to do is that kind of be derogatory or negative or exploitive to try to exploit it. I'm like, nah, we're not doing this.
Instead of curious
No,
about it.
not
People
always.
No, not always, and it would be so nice. It's like, gosh, her energy is really interesting, and I'd like to get to know her better because I don't understand
Yeah.
it, and that doesn't happen very
Yeah. But no, it
often.
comes off as like, oh, you're just too much. You're a lot.
You're extra. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's just closing thoughts, aside from go out, buy Love Jones Cohort. Other than that, what else would you like to say just in closing about the issues of
Please
being
and thank you. Please go
Yeah.
buy the book. It took me, I think it took me 7 years to actually write the book, and part of it is because COVID hit.
Mm.
I had done some training with police officers, and I just didn't have the bandwidth to go home and write after doing a couple of years of training with them. Excuse
I'm
me.
not well, now I'm curious. Training with police officers?
Yes, I did implicit bias training with police officers. I did
Oh,
that
good
for
heavens.
4 yeah, let's not talk about that. I
Okay.
don't wanna get my blood pressure up, because I did that for 4 years. But one of the things I will say, and I say this everywhere I go, and I stand by this, and it's important that I say this.
Mhm.
Police officers kill Black bodies, professors kill Black spirits.
Mm.
If we are going to indict these institutions, we are going to indict everybody. Police officers make the 5 o'clock news and professors do not make the 5 o'clock news, but they are gutting the creativity, the tenacity, the excitement of these students on a daily basis. And so we need to call out all these institutions and not just policing. So that's the one thing that I took from my training with police officers. And I'm so happy that
Mhm.
I got that epiphany that I would go through those tumultuous 5 years again with the police department just to get to that epiphany.
Mhm.
But so, with that being said, one of the things that I try to do is I try to leap. So the book looks very different if I would have written it 7 years ago. So I really put thought and time into the book. So please, everybody, please go out and buy the book and let me know what you think about it.
Mhm.
One of the things I do in the book is I try to offer some kind of advice for people that are single and living alone. And one of the things that I say, because people ask you all the time, why are you single?
Yeah.
And so, there's a couple of different ways in which you can respond. But having sat and thought about this for years, I said that one of the most benign things that you can do, because you can cuss somebody out from amazing grace to how sweet it is when they ask you the question, or you could put your hand on your hip and let your backbone slip and do all that if you want to, right? But I think one of the most benign ways to get the point across to other people when they ask you, why are you single, is to say, well, what do you mean by that?
Huh?
Here's what happens. It puts the onus back on them to explain what they mean by that. So when you ask why, like, oh, well, Dr. Marsh, why are you single? I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? People are probably going to stutter and stammer, like, oh, well, like, no, I don't know. What do you mean by that? So my pedigree doesn't matter. All the accolades that I have done doesn't matter. All the great energy that I bring to the conversation doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that I don't have an MRS degree. So I think if we use what do you mean by that? Enough times, the person will ultimately find the error in their ways and they'll back out of the conversation.
Yeah. Or, well, but you're so pretty. You should be dating. You should be out there with
What do you
people.
mean
And
by that? So
it's,
you okay?
it's kind of nothing. You get, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that pushes them. Like, makes them at some point they'll keep going, and then after a while they'll be like, oh. Okay.
Exactly. Have a nice day.
Right. I
Very good. Very good.
yes.
Well, obviously, we find you in your book, Love
Yes.
Jones Cohort, and online
Yes, you can find it online. They have there's paperback and there's also an audiobook.
audiobook. And how do people get in touch with you, or you just rather they don't?
Oh, absolutely, you can get in touch with me. I'm on most social media platforms, and you can find me at Dr. Kris Marsh. It's DrKrisMarsh. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok.
And if you can't
TikTok's just
find
for
her there,
fun.
I'm sorry.
TikTok is just for fun. I just do fun stuff on TikTok.
I'm still trying to understand TikTok, but good for you.
I just figured that fun. I was like, okay, let's try this.
Right. Why not? Why not? Thank you so much. I really appreciate talking with you today.
Thank you for
And
having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks for
thank
having
you.
me.
We were talking today with Dr. Kris Marsh, talking about being single and Black in America today, building a life on her own terms and what that looks like for the rest of us, and how, for those of us north of 50, how we can talk to our daughters and sons about how don't get married if it's not right. You don't have to. You can be single and happy. Thanks so much for joining me. And remember, discover your own joy. Find curiosity in your life. And please look for something funny. We need it. Take care until next time.